So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on remote working versus the office space. So I'm going to be talking this afternoon about pros and cons of working from home, and also talking a little bit about the research that's been done with employees and employers. And then I'm going to be passing you on to Gavin and Stuart of EBC Group, who are going to be talking you through the IT and technical aspects of getting your employees set up to work from home. And then we're going to come back to Tom Jarman, who's going to be talking about the mental health and well-being aspects of working from home. So just a bit of housekeeping. I expect that will last somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour, depending upon the questions and how many questions you ask. Feel free to use the Q&A box to ask those questions throughout, and we'll come back to them, circle back round at the end, and we'll point them in the right direction of whoever's best to answer those questions. Just quick summary of Datum before we move on. So our business is about making cost savings and service improvements for companies that use a lot of agency labour. We're about legal compliance, consolidated invoicing, and management information. So if anyone on this call is interested in, please drop me a note after this. So just looking at the current state of play, well, actually pre-COVID-19, there was a survey done by the ONS, and they found that 1.7 million workers work from home for the majority of the time. But that's only 5% of the workforce, and the workforce is almost 33 million in total. So quite a small percentage of the workforce. 70% of those people surveyed, and that's almost 24 million, had never worked from home prior to where we are now, where a lot of people are working from home. So what that actually meant is that we were singled out as being well behind the rest of Western Europe, and potentially some of the world's worst prepared, or one of the world's worst prepared companies for working from home in the COVID environment. There are a number of reasons for that, though. Some industry sectors are better placed to have people working from home than others, and transport and storage is one of those that was singled out as only 10% of the people surveyed had worked from home, but the industries like communications, professional and scientific, about half of them had worked from home at any one time. Sorry, I just need to hide this to see my slides. Interestingly, the people who were working from home were above average earners, and they fitted within the 40 to 49 age group and the 65 plus. Not quite sure why there's a gap between 49 and 65, but where you are based and where you live has a factor on whether you are more likely to be working from home or not. So London and the South East and South West, they're more likely to be working from home, and North East, Scotland and Northern Ireland were least likely. But I guess that's probably down to the fact that you've got different industries. You've got heavy industries in North East and Scotland, and then you've got the more professional within London and the South East. So that's the information from the ONS. There was another study done by Global Workforce Analytics in the US. At the moment, there hasn't been any studies into the UK that I could find anyway, but this is similar and should represent a similar sort of spread to what we'd find in the UK. So when they did the actual survey itself, 56% of the jobs that were performed in the US were compatible with working from home. But again, similar to the UK, only a very small percentage, 3.6% of those employees had ever worked from home, either half their time or more than that. There's quite an increased demand for working from home within those that were surveyed. So 80% of them said that they would like to work from home. And interestingly, a third of them said that they would be prepared to take a pay cut to be able to do so. And I know that there are some companies who are exploring these options. So Facebook, I believe, is one of them at the moment in looking to see whether people would be prepared to take a pay cut to work from home. One of the reasons that's driving that demand is that I think there's more of or less of a fear from managers about managing people who actually work from home. So working on and managing on a results basis rather than measuring whether somebody's at their desk or not. So that's one of the things that came out of the study, as well as the fact that if you are a manager who work from home yourself, you are more likely to allow people who work for you to work from home themselves as well. There's also increased pressure for being ready for any disaster recovery type scenarios. So not just COVID, but if there is a fire or a flood or any sort of disaster within your building, then companies need to be ready with their disaster recovery scenario. There's also an increased awareness of cost saving as well. So having very big, large corporate offices is very expensive. And I'll just talk a little bit more about that later. Clearly, there's an awareness of sustainability, so the environmental benefits of not having to travel into work, the benefits for the employee and for the employer. And what they said as a summary, as a best guess really, following this analysis, is that they believe that by the end of 2021, between 25 and 30% of the US workforce will be working from home. And I think we could probably draw similar comparisons between the US and the UK in that time period as well. So just looking at the direction of travel for blue chip companies, and you've probably seen some of these in the press as well recently as well. So Amazon have said that they're giving their employees the option to work from home until at least the end of October. Barclays have currently got 70,000 staff working from home, and their chief exec said a big city office may well be a thing of the past, which is quite a shift really, considering that they are a very big city-based company with that sort of presence. Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg said that he's aggressively opening up remote hiring, and he expects half of his workforce to do their jobs outside Facebook's offices within the next 5 to 10 years. Google, they're extending their working from home till the end of the year. MasterCard, the majority of their employees will be working from home until they're ready to return, and they're also cutting their offices as well. Microsoft, they've extended their working from home until the end of October. RBS, they're allowing their staff to work from home at least until the end of September. Spotify has said that everybody's working from home to the end of the year. And Twitter has said that they'll give everybody the option to work from home permanently. And then finally, WPP, they're the world's largest advertising agency, said that getting back to work in the office is going to be voluntary and flexible. So I just wanted to look at two of the companies who've made a bit more of a pledge to permanently working from home. So Fujitsu in Japan has planned to halve its office space, and they're going to give what they call unprecedented flexibility to their 80,000 workers. And what they've said is that working from home and flexible hours will be standard wherever possible. And their chief exec believes that that's going to boost innovation and deliver a lot of value to its customers. More recently, BP earlier on this week, they've said that they're cutting their property portfolio in half, and that they're shifting 50,000 employees more towards remote working, which is, it's a big number considering they've got 70,000 employees across the world. So just looking at some research, so Bright Horizons are a nursery provider, and they surveyed working parents, and then Sapio Research surveyed companies that had more recently experienced their workers working from home. So what the Sapio research found is that 34% of the companies found that the workers, that companies said that they had a positive impact. So their employees working from home had generated positive results, and consequently 1 in 6 of them were considering reducing their office space, and 70% of them had said that they had stronger relationships with both their suppliers and clients. Moving on to those working parents, only 13% of those working parents want to go back to the way it was before. One of the things that they found was a big challenge was childcare. I know I was talking to Tom earlier. He's had some challenges with childcare working during these times. But overall, 1 in 4 of the people surveyed believed it was a positive experience being able to work from home. Almost 60% of them think that it will increase loyalty to them, to their employers. And almost 50% of the people surveyed said that they're going to be asking their employers to work more remotely or more times remotely from now onwards. But it's not about reducing the hours. A small percentage, 21%, said that they want to reduce the amount of hours that they're working. So there are lots of positives. I'm not going to go into detail about all of them, but the general things that we think about when we are thinking about working from home, and everybody says, oh, it's going to give me a better work-life balance. I can do what I want to instead of traveling. There is a lot of stress involved with commuting, or so everybody says. It also, one of the things that is often missed is that it does open up opportunities for employees to go and work for other companies that are outside their geographical area and they may not have considered. Saving money, clearly, not having to buy your train tickets or put fuel in your car. The obvious environmental benefits. And then, yeah, we're all going to work really hard at home and it's going to be much better. I'm much more productive. I don't have to talk to all my colleagues all the time. So that's one of the things that is often cited as one of the benefits. However, it isn't all positive, and Tom will go into more detail around these, but there was some research done by Novotel, the hotel chain, very recently, and they surveyed 2,000 workers, and 42% of them found that their work-life balance was actually worse since they've been working from home than it was before. 1 in 6 found that it wasn't quite as convenient as they thought to walk from their bedroom to the office or the kitchen table to start work. And a lot of people have missed the commute, missed the opportunity to either get ready for work mentally or wind down from work by the time they get home. And consequently, quite a large percentage had difficulty switching off after work. I know it's something that I struggle with. I finish work and I walk down to the kitchen table and the sort of family's at you. I need a bit more time than that to actually switch off from work. Almost half said that of people surveyed said that they missed the social interaction. So the interaction with their colleagues, but also the social interaction after work as well, if you were to go for a drink with your colleagues. And then finally, quite a large number of people were struggling with motivation. And I know a lot of the people mentioned that they were actually putting in longer hours working from home than they were before, and that probably ties back into the work-life balance point. So I'm almost coming to a close now. Just a couple of the other alternative reasons for working from home. Clearly, we all want to stop the spread of the virus, but apparently the typical office phone has 25,000 germs per square inch. And if you look at keyboards, they have 3 times as more germs. So if you are hot desking and you're sharing a desk and a screen with colleagues, you're sharing all their germs. The fridges are filthy. Apparently they go unclean for 93 days. No idea where they get this information from. I think that's probably ambitious if our office fridge is anything to go by. Door handles, they're a big touch point within offices, and they can infect the office within half the office within hours. And then the final thing is basically your colleagues are filthy, and it's quite concerning because 25% of them admitted to not washing their hands after they've been to the toilet. So not really very, very pleasant. So that's my part done for the time being. I'm going to try and hand you over now to Gavin, and he can take us from there. You'll need to.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, got you.
Perfect. So I'm Gavin. I'm a technical pre-sale specialist here at EBC. To start off the presentation, I'm just going to pass it over to my colleague Stuart, who is the operations director at EBC. So, Stuart, are you able to join?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. So thank you, Jared, for inviting EBC along today. We're a business that's been established since 1989. Very proud of that. We've got 3 data centres, 1 in central Birmingham. We employ 70 employees, and we do a vast array of services from printing, IT, telephony, and so on and so forth. Interesting slides that Jared shared. And I know that Tom's going to come on to the mental thing, but security seems to be something that is low down when people think about, I can move my workforce home and they can work from home. They just think, give them a laptop and a mobile phone and everything just carries on as normal. Gavin will come through on some of the slides about what you need to consider when you make that decision. And you'll see from this slide, there's a number of things that may seem logical, but we're finding from a lot of clients that they're not aware, or they're not putting plans in place to limit any exposure to any ransomware or any security breaches to their infrastructure.
Okay, so in order to kind of look at the way technology has now adapted, especially for working from home and being more of the flexible way of working from the office to home, etc. Essentially, there are a few things which are kind of the basics 101s for IT, where IT administrators should configure machines to have your Windows operating or Mac OS constantly updated to the latest security patches, as well as your antivirus. These and a software firewall on the device itself. These are kind of the basis of any form of security in or out of the office. So you could be working from home as well as working in a Starbucks, or if at some point people are now commuting to and from the office via trains, etc., or going to different office locations. That is an essential part of way of working. The other one, one of the big things is the practices that you kind of use in the office. For example, locking your screen when you're walking away to go to make a cup of tea or make a coffee or pop to the loo. Keep those practices in mind, especially while you're at home. Even though you're in a home environment, you never know. Somebody could still see your screen. There's people putting things on Facebook or LinkedIn, say screens with emails, etc., and those kind of little things are a way for a hacker to socially engineer yourself, so they can try and penetrate the network itself and try and take the information. Other things is one of the big things probably since when the NHS attack came across, which was WannaCry, was the fact of using more of a multi-factor authentication, because things are now moving more and more towards the clouds. For example, Office 365 tools such as Office 365 Authenticator, Google Duo are a way to lock the device down. So, for example, if somebody does take over your screen and does try to access, for example, your corporate information, you would have a request of a 2-factor authentication code or a push notification down to your phone or to your desk phone or to an email that you have to click. That stops that kind of somebody taking over your LinkedIn account, somebody taking over your Outlook email, or any kind of that kind of cloud-based technology which is not stored locally on a device somewhere, as in a server. A lot of companies and corporate organizations are now actually opening up the network in terms of actually allowing connection to the CRM database, to financial records, to HR records. And a lot of this is now being secured by VPN connections, which have been hosted by the IT providers. For example, here at EBC, we provide VPN connection via WatchGuard firewalls. So that VPN connection is a handshake between your laptop and the corporate network, where any information or any traffic that you do in terms of opening a document, sending a presentation, opening an email, is going via secure internet connection, so virtual private network. So that and a host-based firewall on the laptop. Windows and Mac have those features currently always installed, but just kind of, if you have an IT provider or have internal IT, just be sure that those things are turned on. The other kind of best practices, it's the same as kind of working within the office, is blocking, for example, blocking the USB thumb drives and CD drives, etc. It's kind of a standard thing. The last thing that you want to do is just open the network up to a thumb drive which has been found at the bottom of a drawer, not too sure where you got it from, and it could contain a virus or some sort of logging information which could cause your laptop stroke PC stroke the corporate network to start crumbling, also spamming and causing malware on the devices. This is kind of geared towards more of the IT admins, is to monitor the devices. Monitoring the devices will produce a report where you can monitor if a device has got the latest Windows updates, the latest antivirus, has somebody gone to a website where there's been a possible attack, the website's been compromised, and there's been an attack on the drive, on the laptop. That kind of reporting is quite critical, because that then kind of gives you a baseline of who do you need to speak to, what work does an IT professional need to do in terms of making that device more secure and giving it more information back. Since probably the next one, it's probably since when COVID came about, a lot of organizations did rush to using things like Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, etc., to share documents and share information around, because outside of the corporate network, you're only limited in how much information you can send by email. So the best way to kind of work with this is using if you're using Office 365, is using the corporate provided sharing platforms. For example, Microsoft Office 365, using the OneDrive. I know some companies are using G Suite, so they're using the G Suite drive itself to send and receive the data. That's trusted platform. That area should be backed up, being secured, two-factor authentication, so nobody can get hands on information which they shouldn't be getting hands on. And the next 2 points kind of really do link in with each other. It's be vigilant on what's coming through, what people are seeing, what kind of emails. COVID first came about, there was a mass attempt by hackers or people just trying to extort money through the internet, saying COVID email related messages, etc. Companies such as Kaspersky, Sophos, etc. have kind of tightened the grips on this and have locked it down. But you can shut down one site and it will move somewhere else within 30 seconds before you blink of an eye, and you'll get another email, for example. So be careful what kind of emails you're getting through. If you find an email that you're not too sure about, before opening it or clicking on a link or sending it around, ask the IT professional, send somebody a message, or send a WhatsApp or a phone call to somebody in the office. Did you receive something like this? Is it above board? That's a key thing. The last thing you want to do is start opening yourselves up to anything. It's not just for your corporate devices, but it's also for your personal devices. Things for such as Android and Apple have had compromises recently. There's just been an Apple iPhone hack recently that's just coming about from a celebrity in Australia, which I've been reading about. Her iPhone has just been compromised and some images have been taken off there and shared on the internet. And that kind of links into the next part, which was being careful. Be careful what you post on social media. I've seen lots and lots of information people put on LinkedIn saying, this is my setup at home. I have 5 screens. I have this, and I've got a coffee on the side. But information which has been shared on a notepad or on a screen or anything like that, people can pick it up and actually start socially engineering you and start trying to manipulate your email, your communication. So a email which seems to be coming from you is asking somebody to send money to another account because of a work order that's just been completed. So keep that in mind and try to keep your work data and your personal data separate. So still consider like being like you're in the office, like your work laptop is your work laptop, your home laptop is your home laptop. Don't mix the two together, because you never know, you may leave your password for your online banking on your laptop. Somebody might be able to see it when they're walking past, or whatever. An IT professional might remote in to do some work, and that information's there. So keep things separate and don't store passwords on a laptop unless it's in a password safe. Something like a free version of that is KeePass, which you can download for free off the internet. It's very good. It'll take about 300 years to try and crack it if you do create a password safe. That's via a brute force attack. If you are, so depending on some people's natures of the job, some people, for example, is HR, finance, etc. When you're in an office environment, if you've got sensitive data that you have to see, 9 times out of 10, it's just you in an office, or you and nobody else around you, or nobody can peer over your shoulder. Keep that practice at home as well. You might be with your partner or somebody else, or somebody may come over, but they can still see your screen and what's going on. So use a privacy filter on your monitor or on your laptop to hide that information, because that information you're seeing, you're privileged to. So be careful with that kind of thing. You can pick those up over Amazon. They're about £5–10, a couple of days, and they just clip onto the front of the screen. Definitely worth having. And probably finally, for the IT professionals or organizations which have, I would say, multiple devices, and that's not just laptops, mobile phones, tablets, it's to have an MDM solution. So a mobile device management, MDM, will give you reporting on what's going on with the device. Has anybody made any attempts on it? If the device is lost or stolen, they can try and track it through, similar to using Find My Phone for Apple, or the Google equivalent, or Microsoft. That MDM solution allows you to monitor, to manage, and control a device anywhere in the world. And you can control if somebody's trying to make an attack over Office 365 email, and you look at the MDM solution, it's coming from South Africa. You've already had a policy put in place that only traffic from the UK can come through, and only on these specific IP addresses on this person's house or this person's house. You can't spoof that. So MDM solutions, Microsoft do this through Intune, which is part of the Office 365 world, or Autopilot. Sophos have got their MDM solution, as well as Kaspersky. It's worth looking into, and that little bit extra layer of security does go a long way to protect not just yourselves, but the organization where you work, or your personal business. Do you want to carry on, Stu?
Yeah, carry on, Gav. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, that's absolutely fine. So EBC as a organization, we're basically your provider for your one-stop shop for IT, so your MSP, managed provider. So we can provide you anything from, for example, like doing complete audits to hardware to software, security assetting, security monitoring, and manage support on your devices. So all these kind of elements that we spoke about, I've spoken about previously, it's COVID has exposed a lot of holes in corporate IT policies, etc., because it was always geared, like Jared alluded to earlier, is the UK is lagged behind Europe by working within an office. the fact that mobile working is now become more important, and working from home and how you work from home and how you access that data is it's IT's already there. It's now adopting that new technology where EBC can help you through, for example, using 2FA, MDM solutions, antivirus, patching, monitoring, being a complete SOC team, which is Security Operations Command Center, over anybody's organization infrastructure. So there's 5 ways that, as you can see there, EBC can help you with.
Thanks, Gav.
Thanks, Gav. Thanks, Stuart. I'll just move on now to onto Tom. Tom's going to take us through the mental health well-being aspect. So I'll drive the slides for you, Tom. Just let us know when you want me to sort of move on.
Perfect. So we've obviously seen the impact that working from home can have on both your security and from a wider network, but there is one major resource, the human resource people, that actually we need to look after as much as security and everything else. And what I want to take you through is that whilst there is a lot of positive from working from home, a lot of people feel a lot more flexible. A lot of people like the fact that they get to sort of pick and choose when their hours fit around their kids or whatever they've got on. There's actually quite a few negatives as well. So I'm just going to move my screen. There we go. A Nuffield Health survey showing that an overwhelming 80% of Brits feel working from home has negatively impacted their mental health. And when you think about this, it's potentially not surprising because, as we've alluded to, in the UK, we're not very good at working remotely. We are behind Europe. We have always worked within an office. So we're almost conditioned to that type of environment, which is quite a social environment. It tends to flow relatively well. Meetings sort of come in and go out. And you don't get that at home. So people have reported feeling isolated, even lonely or disconnected from other people, which is not surprising. As much as you can see me and Jared and Stuart and Gavin over the video, there is a lack there that actually you can't see, you can't shake hands, you don't have that normal social interaction that you would usually have from that. So it's not surprising people can feel isolated. One thing, a major one that we're seeing at the moment is people being unable to switch off from work, which is a little bit surprising because you can literally walk from your bed to your office or to the dining room and away again. But that means that temptation is always there. One thing we've spoken about in the past is that usually you have a commute which starts your sort of professional working day. So I know that when I leave my house, I use my own commute to sort of set up what I'm going to do that day, what I need to prioritise, what I need to focus on. And again, when I come home from work, I then, because I'm a bit of a reflector, I then reflect on what's happened that day. If there's anything I could have done better, if there's something that's still outstanding, I might even make a few calls on my way home. But that means that by the time I get home, I'm usually out of work mode and I go into personal mode. That sort of hard stop doesn't exist when you're working at home because your commute is literally from your bedroom to the office. So that being unable to switch off from work goes hand in hand with the temptation that the laptop is just there. I can just quickly go back on. And like we've said from a security, you might just lock your laptop at the end of the day. You might not turn it off, which means it's all too easy to then go have a look and just check an email before I go to bed. But that has knock-on impacts to both staying motivated because you're constantly checking emails, you're constantly checking on your phone or your laptop, and difficulty prioritising workload because it tends to be more reactive. And I know when people have reported to me, and I share this frustration, is that because we've got that urge as human beings to have that social interaction, we tend to put in quite a lot more meetings. I have meetings front and centre all day long, and it's nice because it's over video call and I can see people and I can talk to them, but actually that makes it hard for me to prioritise workload because I'm constantly coming out or going into a meeting. Other things that Nuffield Health have also said is that people feel uncertain about progress or whether you're performing okay. You don't have a daily check-in with your manager, you don't have that sense check that you're doing a good job. And so team leaders, managers, directors have that that responsibility to check in with their teams and make sure that they are managing their performance, albeit in a different way, but checking in both on their mental health, on their physical health, and ensuring that they know how to prioritise, they know what they need to be putting first, and that the outcomes are still what they need to be. And lastly, one of the biggest negatives is insomnia and sleep problems. And this stems from a couple of different things. It stems from both us changing our habits of work and working potentially an hour, especially if you've got children. You might turn your laptop on at 7:30, work an hour, get them ready for school, holiday club, whatever, do the drop off, and you think, well, it's fine, I can take that hour out of my day because I've done an hour before. And again, you know, you might put the kids to sleep, or you might have something else going on, and you turn your laptop back on. That, mixed with the fact that screens generally emit a blue light, which psychologically and physiologically means that we're more in tune with the screen, means that it makes us harder to turn off at night. It makes it a longer process to actually relax and go to sleep. So insomnia and sleep problems go hand in hand, both with that sort of anxiety, depression that actually some of these negatives can present. Perfect timing, thanks Jay. On the flip side to that, there are positives. So Wild Goose did a survey, and they found that 74% of employees want to keep working from home after the lockdown is over. And I think when lockdown started and COVID hit, there was an initial hesitation from some companies to say, not sure we can really work from home, and not sure people will be as productive. We're not entirely sure how that's going to work, especially in functions such as payroll, where you're having to work on systems that are quite regulated. However, what it's shown is that actually with the right support, with the right security, with the right management, most people can work from home effectively, if not more effectively than they could in the office. So there is a reduced commute. I've said that's a detriment to me, but actually some people who commute 2 to 3 hours, 1 to 2 hours might actually love the fact that they get that time back, which has an environmental impact to both yourself and the planet, less pollution. And also with a commute generally comes traffic. So you tend to be less stressed, you know, with a commute going from your bed to your office rather than getting in the car and battling with traffic for an hour. It's also seen that there's a reduced absenteeism. People don't have the feeling that, oh, you know, I've got a cold, I don't want to infect other people, I don't want to go in unnecessarily, so I'm going to work from home, because actually they can work from home with a cold or feeling slightly under the weather. So there is a reduced absenteeism. It needs to be a watch out that people aren't showing presenteeism, which is when they're genuinely ill to actually stay at home, rest and recuperate rather than being absent. So there needs to be a watch out, and managers have got that responsibility to check in with people. More time to do exercise and physical activity goes hand in hand with the less commute. But also on the flip side, if you're doing more work, it tends to be more difficult to juggle that. Can be more time with family. I mean, I love my children, my wife dearly, but I know that I was absolutely not designed to live with them and work with them hand in hand. But some people, that's completely the opposite, and they absolutely love that time with family. So it depends on your personality there. Less office politics. You don't have to avoid those sort of issues where you might look at someone, they might think, oh no, what's going on there? There's none of that, obviously working on your own. And you get to choose where you work from. Just because you work remotely doesn't mean that you can't, for example, go and work in the coffee shop, as we talked before. Or we've had actually people suggest, if they've got the funds to do it, they can go and hire, you know, a cabin, or go on holiday and work from a villa. As long as you're focusing on outputs, you're still being as productive, and you're still doing as much as you should be doing, and you're hitting your performance KPIs. There's no reason that actually you can't work remotely from wherever, as long as you've got the security and the physical attributes to do that. One thing to touch on with negative and positives is, however many people, I'm not sure if other companies do this, but where the UK does tend to lead better than Europe is with some HR practices such as personality profiling. So for those of you who have done Insights or MBTI or Myers-Briggs, you'll know that some people have different personalities and that they will respond differently. And generally what we're seeing is that introverts, who tend to get energy from being on their own, and get drained from being around people, work from home much better because they're in a really comfortable environment. It's more introverted, they've got their own space, they're not having they're not expected to go into meetings and things like that. Whereas extroverts, who tend to get their energy from working with and through other people, tend to find working from home quite difficult because they don't have that social interaction that comes with being within an office environment. And they also don't have that ability to bounce ideas off each other as quickly and as easily as they can. So it's up to us as leaders, directors, managers of those companies to ensure that our teams are comfortable, and you're also taking into consideration what the personality of that person is as well. There are some key aspects to think about, especially when you're thinking about returning to work. So 3 out of 5 people, which is 60%, have said that they want to see more casual contact. They miss seeing their workmates and spending time face to face. And there is a big difference than spending time with people over Zoom calls, Teams calls, than actually going. It may be going to the pub, or it might be having lunch together. It might even just be having a quick chat, 5 minutes. How was your weekend? That is an inherent need for people to function properly. So that's rooted both physiologically and psychologically. I can't speak. Also, about 47% of people will like more social contact with workmates as part of their working day. This isn't naturally, like I said, going to the pub. This could be having lunch with them or anything like that. And 47% of people have stated that, yes, their mental health has been impacted. So it's incredibly important as responsible and ethical companies to lean on the support that they've got. Most companies, you need to check with your own, but most companies have an employee assistance program, an EAP. If you have a pension, they'll generally have an EAP as well, where it provides usually 24/7 hour telephone support. They might even be able to suggest counselling or refer a doctor scheme. So it's worth checking what your EAP support is and ensuring that you can access levels of support where you can. You may have mental health first aiders in your organisation as well, so it's worth talking to them about the impact that they can anticipate from working from home. So it's just seeing what support you can lean on and what's available. So we have got some tips to support mental well-being. There are 6 key tips that we've sort of identified here. The first is create boundaries between work time and home time. It's all too easy just to simply walk from the dining room table, your bed or wherever, to the dining room table, but that you don't have a boundary. If you can, the best thing to do is to have an office with a door that you can shut, and it creates a physical boundary between a workspace and your home space. If not, then best case scenario is don't blend your personal and your workspaces. If you have got a dining room table, set it up like you would a work office. And then when you're relaxing in the evening, spend time away from that. One thing that is quite difficult for people, especially with mental health problems, or poor mental health, is working on your bed. I know it's comfortable, I know it's tempting because there is that temptation not to get dressed, you just roll out of bed, but actually it doesn't create a boundary between a work environment and a home environment, and it tends to grate on people, and that's where boundaries become a little bit blurred. Try a digital detox in the evening. It's all too common to work all day from a laptop, you're in front of a screen or you're talking on the phone, it's screen time all day, and then either go and sit in front of the TV or on your iPad or your phone or anything like that in the evening. All you're doing is completely bombarding your senses with screen time and blue light. So having a digital detox in the evening will help that issue with if you're finding it difficult to sleep. Exercise and go outside at least once a day. When you think about an office environment, you won't just sit at your desk. You will walk to the kettle, you'll walk to the kitchen, you'll go to the toilet, you might have a meeting, you might go and walk outside while you're on the phone, you might just walk up and down the corridor, you might go out for lunch, but you move from the space that you're in. All too often, and I've done it today, I haven't left my house, which is surprising for me actually, but that means that I haven't actually gone out, got any fresh air, I haven't done an exercise, which means I tend to just be having that sedentary lifestyle at the moment and sitting, which isn't good for my mental health, but physically it doesn't help that I'm hunched over in front of a laptop all day either. So just going and exercising and getting out on the day will have a good effect on both your mental and your physical health. try to go to bed on time. Try to ensure that you shut your laptop down at the end of the day. If you've completed your work, shut it down. Don't just hibernate it. Don't just close the lid, because it's all too easy then to turn it back on, to have a look at an email before you go to bed. What people don't understand is that when you look at an email and you read it, what you're doing is re-engaging yourself into your work mode, which there is a cycle that you go through. So you then start to think about what you could do, or then start to prioritize where that is on your to-do list. What people don't realize is then there is another time lapse, sort of 10 to 15 minutes, or even if it's an email that's really sort of quite emotional, sort of an hour or longer, where you switch off again from work. So just checking an email before you go to bed actually is one of the worst things you can do. Try to stay a normal bedtime routine, even if it means you would get up at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning. Try and stay to that, which goes hand in hand with setting up a routine and dedicated space to work. As we've spoken about before, it's all too easy to blur those lines. And then stay connected with your colleagues and manager by having regular meetings. My manager, Sarah, who's our people director, actually is very good at reading people and thinking, how am I going to connect people in a different way than work? So we have had quizzes, we have a daily catch up at 5 o'clock with or without alcohol, it's your choice, where we just talk about stuff that's going on in our personal lives or stuff that's going on in the world. We try not to talk about work too much. We've also been out when the weather was a bit better. We had a rounders afternoon, so everyone socially distanced, played rounders. And it's things like that where you can build in things where you do get to socialise and you do get to meet people, and it breaks the day up, and it also gives a little bit of normality. Now, as part of this, I haven't spoken about things that you can do to facilitate a return to work, or looking after people when they return to work. So if that is something you want to do, pop it in the Q&A. We'll be happy to answer those questions as well. If you've got any questions, let me know. But there are 6 tips that we would generally lean on as a first to support that.
Brilliant, Tom. That's great. That's some great advice there. Certainly some tips I'll be implementing myself as well. Okay, so we've come to the end of the webinar now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and hopefully we can get some questions come in and see whether we can respond to those. So we'll just give you a little bit of time. Just open those up. Wait for those to come in. Right, okay, so it looks like we've had no questions come in, so we'll wrap it up. But thanks Stuart, Gavin, that was really good. Tom, really appreciate your input, and Karina, thanks again. We'll be sending out a summary recording of the webinar to everyone who attended, and hopefully you found it of use.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much, guys.
Good day.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.